Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, the Sprite Raven Friday Night TV Talk with, as always, or at least most of the time, my guest co-host, John Figaro Norris.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. And it's April Fools, we're gone. I'm kidding. But no. What we gotta do is like fill out a report or something. No, I'm kidding. It's one of those days. But anyway, it's science fiction retro again, and we're talking about the 1976 Filmation live-action TV series ARK II. I watched it when I was 4. John was a little bit too young to watch it when it originally aired.
Yep.
So it was quite the interesting trip to revisit this for me, and for him was his first experience with it. So let's see what we got here. ARK II, 1976, created by Martin Roth and Ted Post, produced by Norm Prescott, Dick Rosenblum, and Lou Scheimer, starring Terry Lester, who would later go on to be well known in soap operas. Jean Marie Hone, not Jean Marie. A lot of people get it confused. It is Jean Marie, who also did some acting after this series, but left Hollywood and became a pharmacist. Jose Flores and Moochie the chimpanzee. The genre is science fiction action adventure. The episodes last 22 to 24 minutes, and it was originally released from September 11th to December 18th. 1976. It aired originally on CBS Network. And what it's about: for millions of years, Earth was fertile and rich. Then pollution and waste began to take their toll. Civilization fell into ruin. This is the world of the 25th century. Only a handful of scientists remain, men who have vowed to rebuild what has been destroyed. This is their achievement: ARK II, a mobile storehouse of scientific knowledge manned by a highly trained crew of young people. Their mission: to bring hope of a new future back to mankind. I, Jonah, Ruth, Samuel, and Adam are fully aware of the dangers we face as we venture into the unknown, maybe even hostile areas. But we're determined to bring the promise of a new civilization to our people and our planet. That is the basic opening dialogue to each episode. Originally was read by Lou Scheimer for the opening, and then later on Terry Lester would read it all as Jonah. ARK II has obviously a racially mixed cast, with Terry Lester as ARK II's commander Jonah, Jean Marie Hone as Ruth, Jose Flores as Samuel, and of course the chimpanzee named Moochie, who played Adam, the chimp. And Lou Scheimer also voiced Adam whenever the chimp talked, which was quite interesting to watch as well.
Yep.
The show's premise was inspired by the story of Noah's Ark, and the characters were given names taken by the Hebrew Bible. Set in the post-apocalyptic 25th century, specifically the year 2476, with the show having debuted in 76, after Earth's civilizations have been decimated by the effects of waste, pollution, and warfare, and have fallen back to a civilization comparable to the Dark Ages. Again, the group's mission is to search for remnants of humanity and reintroduce lost ideas as they meet new people and travel the barren landscape in their high-tech ARK II transport. The show does mention the headquarters and that the crew are scientists. The titles and commander and captain are both used for Jonah. I think he should be a commander, not a captain, personally, but that's just me. All of the installments begin and end with numbered entries in the ARK II's log, kind of like Captain Kirk's log in Star Trek, in which Lester, in character as Jonah, narrates in voiceover what the story is going to be about and what the lesson is at the end of the story, because like other Filmation television series of the era, the show always had a moral lesson that was derived from preceding events of the series seen in the episode. However, the epilogue log entry, say that 3 times fast, narrated by Jonah, is used to deliver the moral rather than have any of the characters break the fourth wall and speak directly to camera and TV viewers. To deliver the moral, which was more common in most Filmation shows, usually what they would do, like in Shazam or The Powers of Isis, they would have Captain Marvel talk to you, or Billy Batson, or Isis and her friends talk to you directly. Or even stuff that was more animated, like Cosby, the Cosby Kids show. They would have the kids, and then Bill Cosby would talk about it afterwards. But
they did that all the way up through Brave Star, their final show. They always had morals at the end.
Yeah, exactly. The series is best remembered for its eponymous vehicle, the futuristic 6-wheeled vehicle combination RV and mobile laboratory. It was a 44-foot long vehicle with a fiberglass body on a set 1971 Ford C-Series C700 cabover built by the Brubaker Group. The front end of the ARK II prop would later be reused as the nose portion of the Seeker spacecraft in later live-action science fiction Filmation series, Space Academy and Jason of Star Command. And this is kind of common because Filmation was notoriously cheap and always recycled everything they could. but then you got to remember, Saturday morning cartoons, they didn't exactly give them a budget to work with either.
Mm-hmm.
This model, however, was not the same vehicle built by Dean Jeffries, who constructed the Fantastic Vehicles for science fiction films and television, specifically the Landmaster from the film Damnation Alley, which the ARK II is often confused with as being the same model. The fact is, the Landmaster is only 35 feet long, compared to the ARK II's 44 foot long, and the Landmaster has a steel armor construction on 12 wheels instead of fiberglass on 6 wheels. We will, at some point, review Damnation Alley as well, but we haven't got that far yet. In addition,
I need to see Damnation Alley first.
Yeah, exactly. In addition, the ARK II series also featured a jetpack called the Jet Jumper, and the ARK Roamer, which is a smaller 4-wheeled all-terrain vehicle also built by the Brubaker Group from a modified Brubaker box, which was a kit car that used a 1968 Volkswagen Beetle sedan chassis. The Roamer was carried in the rear of the vehicle. Okay, we'll let you read the first episode.
All right. So episode 1, The Flies, writer Martin Roth, director Ted Post, who, fun fact, also directed Clint Eastwood in Hang 'em High, which we've talked about on our show. And he also directed one of the Planet of the Apes movies. But I digress. So the team come across a vagabond band of young boys and teens led by a man named Fagin, played by none other than Jonathan Harris of Lost in Space fame. So I kind of expected him to go like, "You bubble-headed booby," or something like that. But anyway, I digress again. Who steal and scrounge what they can and come across canisters of poison gas. The ARK team has to convince them to surrender the gas instead of using it to harm others and steal their wares.
Okay, our thoughts. Let me go with mine first. Obviously, the writers are using Oliver Twist and Lord of the Flies as their influences for this story. Of course, because this show is only 22 minutes long, they don't really get to explore the depths of either of those excellent stories when they're adapting them and trying to fit them together. But it is a good point to the show that they're clearly trying to take worthwhile stories as source material to speak to this younger audience that they're targeting. And it's also going to help keep adults engaged with their kids as they watch the show because they're seeing something that's intelligent and not dumbed down.
Yep.
What do you think about it?
I liked it, and I didn't read up. I did not read up on the show before I saw it, so I went into it blind, as they say. So, and of course, having been the musical director for Oliver the Musical, it's like I thought it was very cool that they referenced Oliver Twist, and I mean, it's Jonathan Harris. Who's always entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he's he's one of these actors that he kind of supersedes the roles he plays because he's playing himself in a way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you didn't like him as the Doctor in Lost in Space, you're going to be annoyed with him here too. But if you like the Doctor in Lost in Space, well, this is a different, slightly askew from that because he's playing Fagin and not playing the Doctor. There's still that kind of, not so much evil or malice, but I'm trying to think of the word, manipulative.
Yeah.
Side to this guy that you can see he likes to manipulate everybody, and whether he's doing it with I don't see the malice in him though as much.
Right.
And I think that's done mostly because it is a kid's show. If this was done more for a geared toward a teen audience, it might have got a little darker. Okay, well, I'll go with episode 2, The Slaves. Let me close that window here. There we go. Written by David Dworsky, directed by Hollingsworth Morse, who directed many of these episodes. Jonah is captured by a land baron who keeps slaves. Ruth and Sam have to try to rescue Jonah while he plans to free the slaves. But one slave betrays the clan by telling the baron of Jonah's plans in hopes of earning favor with him so he could see his sister, who he believes has been transformed magically into a rabbit. Jonah confronts the Baron, who seemingly turns him into a chicken in front of everybody by using his magic, which is really just a trap door, and he's held in the jail below while the slaves think that the Baron turned him into a chicken. But the others, Ruth and Sam, free Jonah, and he confronts the Baron again, only this time he's prepared for the trapdoors and other tricks, and he overpowers the Baron and frees the slaves. It's a fairly solid episode. I do suspect at age 4, when I originally saw this, the initial magic might have freaked me out because I was not the jaded skeptic I am today. But I do wonder how adults in general, even those who are, adults in the episode, would have been fooled by this. Mostly because I realize that they've gone back and they've lost a lot of their common sense knowledge and stuff like that, I guess, or more supernatural beliefs, superstitious beliefs and stuff like that in this post-apocalyptic world. But I would think that adults would have enough brains to know what magic was and say, no, that didn't happen. Where's my person? But again, this is not really targeted for adults. It's targeted more towards a younger audience. So it's perfectly fine.
Right.
What do you think of this episode?
Pretty much the same thing you did.
Okay. That's good. We're good. We'll go ahead and go on with the next one, which is The Wild Boy. We'll let you read it.
Written by Susan Dworsky, directed by Hollingsworth Morse. The crew The crew befriend a feral boy who they come across while spelunking. He tries to attack, and not really an attack, but a warning that the cave is dangerous, although they don't get that it's a warning at first.
Right.
They scare him off. A local group of villagers are looking to capture the wild boy and warn them that he is dangerous. The team finds some rocks in the cave that apparently drain their power from the ARK II, and Jonah has to try to rescue the boy named Isaiah, again another biblical reference, from the villagers who have no good intentions toward him.
Now, I'll go ahead and go from there. Unfortunately, the plot does lose something here. The effects, the rocks that they take affect Ruth, Sam, and Adam, making them sleepy because apparently they burn off all the oxygen in their immediate vicinity and, basically knocks them out. Supposedly, the rocks also drain power from the ship, but then later in the episode, Jonah asks Sam to activate full positronic density on the force field and then to do something else. But the power is drained and can't drive the ARK, so why would they have the power to do that? That was a real problem with the plot there, unfortunately. And so this is one of the weaker episodes as a result. But of course, they make it work. And the what Jonah asks for is some sort of effect that changes the sky orange, and it freaks out the villagers so that Isaiah can escape. But Simone, the leader of the villagers, chases after Isaiah with Jonah behind them. Ultimately, Jonah and Ruth save Isaiah, and Simone realizes that she has misjudged the young man because his parents were killed in the cave by the rocks, and that was why he was trying to warn them away from the cave. Once they realized what was going on and everybody's kind of understanding one another, Jonah uses his lasers to seal up the cave, and Isaiah goes to live with Simone and her family, and they all leave friends. Again, the plot point that just doesn't work. Do they drain the ARK of power, or do they just consume oxygen, or both? They didn't really explain it. It made the story a little bit confusing at times. But overall, the general plot, the general idea of the episode is respectable and enjoyable for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next episode is, well, we'll let John talk about it.
The Robot. So written by Chuck Menville, Len Jansen, Martin Roth, and directed by Ted Post. Now, like I said, I didn't read up anything about this series before I watched it, so I had no idea that Robbie the freaking robot from Forbidden Planet was going to show up, and Robbie's a genuine cultural icon here, folks. I mean, some of you probably know that already, but I just thought that was so cool. I mean, even though he's, shall we say, not quite as intelligent as he is in Forbidden Planet, it was really nice to see him. So in this episode, Robbie the robot plays Alpha One, aka Alfie, a robot Samuel has been trying to put together. He succeeds, and perhaps the robot would be of some benefit to the team, but isn't quite trustworthy to Jonah, and he orders the robot to be deactivated. Only Alfie is artificially intelligent enough and has other plans. He knocks out Sam with knockout gas and leaves the ARK while Jonah and Ruth are out in the roamer. They return to find Sam knocked out on the floor. Jonah gets angry. Jonah is a real dick in this episode, which, he is. He acts rather out of character for how he's been portrayed in the series so far.
And really, overall, in the whole series, this is one of the episodes where he's really out of character.
Yeah. Alfie finds a sick girl, the daughter of two people the group found earlier who were sick as well, who lead him back to the village where he intends to help them, but the villagers are frightened by him and attack. Alfie defends himself and leaves. Meanwhile, Jonah is flying about on his jetpack trying to find him. When Jonah goes to the village, they haven't seen flying people before either, so they throw rocks at him too, which makes him crash and injure himself, and Alfie rescues him. Alfie leads Jonah to the fissure where the dangerous volcanic gases are coming from, and they try to seal it with their lasers, but it's too late. The pressure's too high and it will blow. Alfie tells Jonah to flee, then jumps into the fissure and self-destructs, blowing the fissure and ending the threat. So our thoughts was it's a decent enough episode, and Jonah realizes his own flaws in the episode, we both think. It was fairly predictable in that the robot had to be gone after one episode, one way or another. But let's get real, folks. It's Robbie the freaking robot. And Robbie the robot just makes anything worth watching. I have to admit, I don't get sad at shows like this very easily, but I was a little verklempt when Robbie selflessly sacrificed himself. But
I love the how the fissure was sealed up, and it kind of had Robbie's I'm trying to think of a word for it, outline of Robbie's body in the seal over the fissure. That was kind of a wild look that they did that there. I don't know. I'm not a huge Robbie the Robot fan myself. So to see you geek out like that is always fun. But yeah, it's a good episode for what it is, other than the fact that I think Jonah really is out of character with the way he is portrayed throughout the rest of the series. He's usually so calm and collected and understanding of everybody else. And, because Alfie makes a few mistakes early on in the episode, which I didn't get into the description, but that's why he was angry with the robot and ordered his deactivation, which was, come on, the chimp does more damage. let's ask the chimp. It's an okay episode. It's obviously it's John's favorite, I think, but yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to the next episode, which is Omega, written by Bill Danson and Jim Ryan, directed by Hollingsworth Morse. The ARK crew encounters a community enslaved by a sentient supercomputer housed by a black monolith. Samuel succumbs to the computer's controls, which jeopardizes Jonah's plan to deactivate it. Now, of course, the black monolith computer is an homage to the monolith of Arthur C. Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey, which people of that era would know from the 1968 movie by Stanley Kubrick, but hopefully people would know from reading the books as well. I really do have to say that the writers did use good resource material for the show's story ideas, which would give kids later as they grow up and they come across these things, they go, oh, I remember that, and they might be interested in it. This episode also featured a young Helen Hunt as Diana in her feature debut in Hollywood. My thoughts are it's kind of a spooky episode because of the way all the people are mentally controlled by the computer. But then again, a lot of these enslaved humans have a sort of creepiness to them in various episodes of the series. But this particular episode, this brainwashed group is especially weird, in my opinion. It was just kind of a really wonky episode in a way, but also one of the more I don't want to say dark, but more dangerous, I guess, for the crew, I would say, because they were actually adversely affected by the computer. All of them were adversely affected, and Samuel just happened to be the one who succumbed first because he had the younger mind and more open to be controlled. What do you think?
Well, this is one of the ones that I did not get a chance to watch. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, John only got to watch about half of these, unfortunately. And unfortunately, where we got to watch it from, they had him out of order and we didn't know it. So there's episodes that he's not going to be on completely with. But get a chance to watch it, and I think you might like that one. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next episode, which is The Tank. Let's go ahead and let you read it.
So written by Mark Jones, Michael Prescott, and Robert Speck, directed by Ted Post, the crew of the ARK II comes upon a village that forbids machinery in the wake of the Great War. Will they reconsider their position when a functional 20th century battle tank could aid in the rescue of their leader's daughter, who was abducted by marauding scavengers? We both agree this is a solid episode, nothing overly special, but generally well written. So
yeah, it's just there. It's just there. Next one is The Cryogenic Man. Did you read this one? See this one, or do I?
No, this is yours.
Okay. Written by Martin Roth and directed by Ted Post, the ARK crew unwittingly opens a Pandora's box of pollution when they revive a 20th century business tycoon determined to kickstart production of his trademark toxic chemical fertilizer. When the tycoon sees the 25th century as a barren wasteland, he figures he can make a killing and be even richer. It's a rude awakening for the team as they see what kind of people the 20th century Americans were like, and let's frankly, kind of who we still are today in the 21st century. My thoughts is this is probably both the funniest and the saddest episode of the series. There's lots of great one-liners, especially from Adam. Jim Backus plays Arnie Poole, the tycoon. Who's best known for playing Thurston Howell III on Gilligan's Island. And it sort of fits that he plays this role, but he's a lot more evil in this. But one of the great lines in this is he goes, Backus's character goes, "I'll be a monkey's uncle," and Adam goes, "Nope, too ugly." And I mean, and just he's shaking his head. And there's other things that the monkey does, the chimp does rather, that is just precious. That it really shows, and it's not just Backus's character, Poole. He has another individual who was an employee of his that gets resurrected as well, or brought out of deep freeze, and he has to make the choice: does he help his boss, or does he do what's right? And so it's this kind of thing of keep your loyalty to your friends or do what's right type morals was part of the story, as well as teaching the kids about the environmental dangers of what would happen with certain chemical fertilizers if we overuse them and stuff like that in that episode. Okay, the next one is The Rule.
Yes,
that's yours.
This is mine. Written by Martin Roth, directed by Ted Post. The crew comes across a village beholden to a rule that kicks out their elderly and their disabled when they can't seemingly provide benefit to the community. When the community is in turn raided, Jonah and the others help the dismissed members of the village get their stolen supplies back, establishing to the leadership that they have worth to contribute to the group and that the rule is foolish. So I have to say personally, if the robot was my favorite episode because of Robbie the Robot, I think this was my favorite episode because of the story and particularly the message of how we treat our elderly and disabled, which, as you know, is still an issue today. And I like the fact that they suggest that elderly and disabled people are not worthless people. And one of the reasons that stuck with me is So for those of you who don't know, I'm a newly elected deacon at my church, and this week was my first week to go and deliver meals to the elderly homebound residents. So, um, so and just and they and just when I got there and when I drove up, like they were just overjoyed to see me and that to have me bring them a meal.
That looks. Yeah.
And so that was on my mind as I watched this episode.
Okay, that's respectable enough. It is a sort of a repeat of earlier episodes' ideas. The episode with the flies, with the kids, Fagin doesn't really respect them. He's just using them. And that was kind of part of the lesson in that episode as well, was to show respect to other communities and other people, which Fagin never really learns anyway. But we hope that the kids learn it. Whether they do or not, we'll talk about in a little bit. But I do have to kind of wonder if we really did this to ourselves, where we just automatically dismiss them out in this type of environment. Will we be that stupid as these various villagers come and attack us, outsiders? And unfortunately, the answer is yes. Probably humanity would still do this because we still treat our elderly and our disabled, anybody who's not quote unquote normal, this way. So yeah, unfortunately, it would be that way. The next episode is Robin Hood.
That's yours.
Yep. Written by Len Jansen and Chuck Menville, directed by Hollingworth Morse. When a tyrant hoards grain to create fuel while his people starve, a post-apocalyptic version of Robin Hood arises to right the wrong. The ARK arrives, hoping to mitigate the mayhem and mediate a peaceful solution. Obviously, we know what concepts are being used here. It's basically a Robin Hood in post-apocalyptic Robin Hood. It is definitely one of the worst episodes of the show, unfortunately. Can't recommend that you bother with this episode, John. This is one of the episodes that took a star away from the show. That's how bad this one was, unfortunately. The next episode is The Draught. Is this mine too?
No, I did watch this one.
Okay.
So Fagin and the Flies return, only this time they hijack the ARK in an attempt to secure a time capsule containing a cloud seeding device. A primitive tribe that worships the time capsule has captured Ruth, Samuel, and Adam. Jonathan Harris, again, loves playing these types of characters. It's interesting that they brought the characters back, and it's, again, for the time that it was produced, it's reasonably well written and thought out. It makes you wonder if the show had lasted more than one season, would they have become regularly recurring foes for the ARK crew to stop? And I could see that happening.
Yeah, I do too. And the sad part of it is I really would have liked to see Fagin become a recurring foe, but I would like to see the Flies, the boys, mature and escape his control and become their own group.
Yeah.
That's what I would have liked to have seen, was that kind of maturity where the kids learned the lesson, even if Fagin was too stubborn to learn.
And it's like, I think like you got a little taste of that in this episode.
A little bit, but not enough to really go to the next. Like I said, but I do think if it went into a second season, it would have probably gone there. I think that maybe it wouldn't have been all of them, but at least the group would have fractured in this ones that had learned and ones that would stay with Fagin or something, Mm-hmm. But yeah. We have The Lottery. Did you see that one, or is that one mine?
Yes, I did see that one.
Okay. I'll let you read it then.
So written by Phyllis White and Robert White, directed by Ted Post, a tyrant employs a rigged lottery as a means of exiling those who threaten his power/authority to an alternate dimension called the Forbidden Zone.
Now this one I didn't get to watch it fully because I was busy with something, and I watched parts of it. I didn't quite get it, so let's hear what you have to say about that episode.
I didn't like, nothing really stood out to me as special. It kind of, is
it plays. Go ahead.
Kind of like the rule in which one person decides who's useful or acceptable and who isn't, and they get those who aren't deemed acceptable get banished
into the Phantom Zone. This is a Superman ripoff episode. That's part of why I lost interest and didn't watch it that much, because I was like, this is obviously where they got that one from. And I've never been a big fan of the Phantom Zone concept personally. And so I was just like, I kind of breezed through it. Like I said, I didn't really get this one. But it wasn't a bad episode, not like the other one where like I said, it was so bad I wouldn't recommend bothering with that episode, but it's okay. Then we have the Mind Group, which is episode 12.
Yep.
Written by Robert Specht and Martin Roth and directed by Hollingsworth Morse. The ARK crew returns to the warlord Brack's territory, which is the same guy they just left, in search of 3 abducted children. The youth possess paranormal powers of telepathy and telekinesis, and they distrust all speakers equally, including the crew of the ARK, mostly because even though they can read people's minds, they feel like speakers aren't openly honest with themselves or one another, and that offends them more or less. And they always look at other people trying to manipulate. They're always hiding something and trying to manipulate people and one another. We've seen this story trope a lot, in a variety of series. It's well executed for what it is. But it's kind of like just standard SF fare. We've seen it in Star Trek. We've seen it in Twilight Zone. We've seen it in other shows where the kids had the mental powers, or an alien race had mental powers, and were distrusting of the rest of the cast. So
I kind of got, and I'm kind of surprised I thought of this, because I haven't seen like the classic Disney Witch Mountain movies in like forever, but I kind of got a little bit of that sort of vibe in this episode.
Yeah. Well, it's so difficult to visually portray telekinesis and telepathy on screen.
Yeah.
And so they use a lot of similar techniques, and that's probably part of why it reminded you of Witch Mountain a little bit. And when we say Witch Mountain, we mean the original Witch Mountain, not the rock crap.
Yes. The good Witch Mountain.
Yeah. So
but I have to say, it's pretty obvious the acting in this series in general was, nothing to write home about, but I actually liked the kids in this episode.
Sure. Well, I mean, I would not say that the acting wasn't anything to write home about, but I mean, all these actors, including the main cast, were doing some of their first ever jobs.
That's true.
So it's kind of this was Terry Lester's first assignment for any TV. I think he might have done some commercials. Jean Marie Hahn had only done commercials before this role. Jose Flores, who played Samuel, this was his first role, and he was a teenager himself. So we'll get into a little bit of the making of this show a little bit later. But his parents were always on set and were kind of interfering with what couldn't be done with him too, because his parents weren't fluent English speakers, and he would be speaking to them in Spanish, and so he'd be thinking in Spanish, and he'd be trying to come on the set, and he would accidentally flub up his words, and even though he was speaking English, he would flip the syntax because Spanish isn't done the same syntax as English, so they'd have to redo takes and stuff. Which, of course, on the shoestring budgets that Filmation worked on, that was not the best situation. But it's a respectable episode. Next is The Balloon, written by Peter L. Dixon and Robert Speck, directed by Hollingsworth Morse. Red balloons bring word of an epidemic sweeping an isolated community, but xenophobic leader is resistant to allowing the ARK to enter with a vaccine for the illness. So Ruth has to get there via hot air balloon and evacuate the villagers. And that's an interesting situation of itself. It's a good episode. This is something that was pretty popular in the 70s. They had a lot of these type of Filmation episodes where they had hot air balloon stories. There was one in Shazam. There was one in ISIS. Just a lot, whether it was the dangers associated with it. I think at least one of them was the kids got in the hot air balloon and let it go, and they didn't know how to control it. So it went away, and they had to go try and rescue the kids type thing. Pretty sure that was a Shazam episode, but
even in this one, she gets told, you're going to have to figure out how to land it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, it's funny that she's the one that does it, because the one who should be doing it is Jonah, because he's in the freaking jetpack all the time. He should know how to handle the hot air balloon too.
Yep.
That would make logical sense, but oh well.
Of course,
I think part of the reason they gave her the thing is because she's the lightest one of the three, and they were going to be having as many people that they could get in there as possible. Plus, it gives her something to do, because Jonah is often the focal character in these episodes. So this is one that kind of gives her a little bit more of a focal character. She's not just window dressing in this episode. So,
and of course, obviously, in 1976, they didn't know that epidemics and vaccines were going to mean something quite real to us in 2022.
Yeah, that's true too. Okay, episode 14 is Don Quixote. This is written by Robert Speck and Len Jansen, directed by Ted Post. The ARK's crew's efforts to disarm an ancient explosives compound is complicated by a latter-day Don Quixote who is convinced that the ARK is a giant white dragon and that Jonah is his nemesis, the Black Knight. This is one of the sillier episodes of the series, and being at the tail end of the run, it feels like the producers and writers knew that the show was not going to be continued, and that the script is a little bit weak for that reason, I suspect. It's still, it's fun, it's lighthearted, but it's serious enough that the characters are put in legitimate jeopardy. But at the same time, you can see they're just having fun with it, type thing with it as well. So, not necessarily my favorite episode by any means. Like I said, the script's a little bit weak, but it's not nearly the worst episode either. Unfortunately, this is one that he did not get to see. So, and lastly, we have Orcas, which is written by Robert Speck, Chuck Menville, and Martin Roth, directed by Henry J. Lang Jr. Ruth and Adam suffer rapid advanced aging after exposure to gas coming from a lake that was polluted by Orcas, who was a despot of a domed community of immortal elites who was also scheming to steal the ARK to generate power for his dying city. Jean-Marie Hone as Ruth has to go through a really crazy wig and prosthetic situation, which we'll talk about a little bit here, but she does a really nice job playing the character as aged Ruth. The rapid aging story has been done many times. It's been done in Star Trek. It's been done in, again, Twilight Zone. So, it's not like we haven't seen it before. But I do think they did it well here. We reviewed Thunder the Barbarian a while back. And when I saw this and I saw her age, it made me think of the episode of Thunder where Ariel gets gassed and ages. Mm-hmm. It made me think, if this was ever done a lot, it's like if 6 years later, when Thunder the Barbarian came out, if they had wanted to do a live action version of Thundar, I could see Terry Lester as Thundar and Jean-Marie Hone as Princess Ariel. Now, let's take a quick look at that picture of them two side by side. Can you see that?
Yep, I can.
Okay, it's not just me. All right. So overall, what do we think about this series? Well, I gave it 3.5 stars, and John gave it 3. Mm-hmm. I think he probably would have given it a little bit higher if he'd seen the rest of the episodes, to be honest. Like I said, the 1.5 stars is because of the one really bad episode and a couple of other minor things for me. But, like I said, John only saw half of the episode, so he's kind of, it's there, but it's a kind of a open-ended 3, I would say.
So let me ask you this. So you said you saw the series when it first came out, right? Mm-hmm. So what did you think of it now versus what you thought of it as a kid?
I remember enjoying the series as a kid, being a fan of Jonah because of the jetpack and seeing him fly around on the jetpack a lot. I can't remember, I was 4 years old at the time. I think a lot of the stories were lost on me as far as me understanding what was going on. I think they were a little bit over my head. But I liked Adam, the chimp, a little bit, because he talked and stuff. But, I think because I saw it at that young of an age, while I enjoyed it more or less for the visual dynamics more so than the story. Whereas now, of course, I can appreciate the stories for what they are, even if, maybe they're a little dated because of when they were made, or maybe because I've seen stuff like this before. It may not be the absolute best thing ever. I certainly, if I had kids, in their early preteens or teens, I would make them sit down and watch this and discuss the episodes with them. I think, and see what they get out of it and stuff, because, it's interesting that they did this at this time of era. I mean, I'll grant you the early to mid 70s, because of the OPEC crisis and because of other things that were going on, global warming was just being discovered in the early 70s. We were kind of in this conscientious conservatism type role, save the earth type mentality for a few years anyway. I think this also kind of precursored other shows like Earth 2. I think Earth 2 got some stuff from this. I even think Captain Planet got some stuff from this in a way. Yeah. So, you know, so I think, you know, like I said, I liked it for the visual dynamics as a kid, but I have a greater appreciation for that now that I'm older. Let's see. Now, in the making of this, there are certain things that you might notice about the show. They almost always do the show during the daytime and never at night. Part of the reason why is because that ARK II vehicle was breaking down constantly. Usually, if you saw, you know how slow it would kind of run anytime it was in any type of environment that wasn't like wide open. That was because it was broke down and couldn't run very well. Anytime that they had the vehicle like frozen and doing stuff, it was probably because they were working on the vehicle while they were shooting other things. Another reason that they did everything at daytime was because of Jose Flores being a minor. He couldn't shoot at nighttime because of the law in California and shooting youth and stuff like that. They have certain times that they can only be shot doing shoots with those characters. And since he is a core character that's in every episode, they kind of have to do it during the daytime. The costumes were unbearably hot, apparently. They were made out of polyester and did not breathe at all. Mm-hmm. And I guess whenever they could, between takes, they would let them take the tops off and cool off because it was so bad, which explains why they stayed so thin. Not the fact that it was, well, we're also in a famine world, but post-apocalyptic, that's why they're thin. But no, I think that's part of the reason, though, why the show didn't last more than one season was because it cost so much trying to keep the vehicle working that it was eating up their budget, and they couldn't do anything else with it. So I think that's part of why they cut it. It's just too expensive. If you'll notice, like I said earlier, when we were talking about the description of the show, the front nose of the vehicle was used as the Seeker nose for Space Academy and Jason and Star Command. A lot of the same sets. They remodeled the sets from ARK II over to those shows, and a lot of the same writers and went over to that as well. So quite an interesting thing. Nobody liked the Atom in real life, though. They didn't like the chimpanzee at all. He was a nice enough chimp, but his trainer was cruel to him, and they saw the cruelty to the animal. And there were times when the animal did things that were unexpected, that weren't that put the actors at risk. It actually bit one of the fingers of Jean Marie Hone. She had to go to a hospital to get it treated. It jumped and almost bit Terry Lester in the back of the head once because it got angry at Terry for something. So that's another reason why I think that the show kind of, after one season, they said no, because, you can't just kill off the chimpanzee, the talking chimp. And so far as in the story, because it's going to have so many kids get upset, but but how do you explain to kids, well, this in real life, this chimp's not really doing, he's a danger to the set. You really can't explain that to kids. So, I think that was another reason why they took it off air, was that, unfortunately. I don't know. It was an interesting show. I liked it better than I liked Jason the Star Commander Space Academy. And by the way, Jonathan Harris is in those as well. Only this time he plays a good guy. So it's like, you know, it's different, but but anyway, I gave it 3.5. You gave it 3. Next week, John has medical appointment on Friday, so he will not be here. I will either do something on my own or I'll have some other guests, depending on who I can scrounge up and see who will make an appearance. Let's see what's going on over here. There it is. But if you enjoyed what we've talked about tonight, or you think you might want to see that show, it's on YouTube. Just type in ARK II. On YouTube, you'll be able to find episodes pretty easily. If you like this video, or you think others might, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from this channel. As always, we thank you for watching and for your support. John and I will return on Tuesday next week to talk about the DC Comics Round Robin 2022, which is where the readers get to vote on which title they want to see DC publish. John hasn't seen the rosters yet. It's sort of like March Madness for DC Comics with new ideas. I don't know. We'll talk about it next week on Tuesday. But until then, if you want to reach out to me, Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, Twitter @LewisBrightRaven2. You can also see my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven exclusively on YouTube. If you want to email me with questions, suggestions for content, you want to commission me for artwork, Quoth the Raven LBR72@gmail.com is the email address to reach out to me at. If I don't get back to you, try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. If you want to talk to John, it's Gray, Grey, Figaro, Figaro, at hotmail.com.
Yep.
So we will catch you next time. Have a great weekend, folks.
Good night, everybody.